You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast from the filmmagazine.com where we explore topics in film theory and criticism through movie reviews and just sitting around and talking. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who has forgotten to take off his heating pad.
Yeah, that's the what's the all I know is that I don't know nothing argument. Well, then you must know something, because you don't know nothing that is something, and therefore going like that.
Wait, Kieran, do you want another crack at that? Because I realized I forgot to turn on your audio. So, Sam, who are you?
Did you forget my audio as well?
Yes, I didn't hit it until after Kieran said his.
All right, I'm the one who is celebrating the film industry starting up again.
Yay.
And I'm Kieran. I'm the one who still has nothing for this segment, even though he's given a second chance.
Yep.
Gave you take two. We gave you a second cut.
There we go. Hey!
That's
We're in
it.
there.
Show's over.
Yeah, that's it. Goodbye. Yeah,
no.
This was meant to be on short films as well, which is the irony. No.
Actually, that would be great if we did want a short film, but did it as long as like Showa or something.
Yeah, do one on short films and make the episode about 5 hours long, and then do one on epics and make it about a 10-minute discussion.
I think we could do it.
Yeah. So let's waste the audience's time a little bit more.
Yes. All right. So I don't think we got any responses to our calls for thoughts on women in film. So yeah, we could just go kind of right into this. We're talking about women behind the camera. So obviously, you know, I think in our culture, Western Anglo culture, actresses are recognized a lot. But behind the camera is kind of where the power really is in the film industry, whether at the, running the camera, doing the lights, whether they're producing, directing, whatever level. I pulled up the study. This is from the, I think, University of Sandy. They probably say it in here. I don't want to say the wrong place, but the celluloid ceiling. It's a yearly study. And this year they found, this year they published that last year they found that in 2022, women comprised 24% of directors in top 250 grossing films. That is up 1% from last year. Or no, down 1% from last year for that. And then in other roles, women comprised of 19% writers, 25% executive producers, 31% producers, 21% of editors, and 7% of cinematographers in the top 250 films. So not exactly progress.
No.
Although it is gradually progressing from when they started the study. You know, you look at 2016, it was at 17%, and it's now in the low 20s. So...
Yeah, and those notes, I've got the thing up now because we're literally seeing from the same hymn sheet here. That most of the things that have just been listed there are what we call above the line. So when you're doing a film budget, the above the line people are essentially cast directors, producers, are your main lot, and I think cinematographer is also above the line. And they're kind of the ones that you like, the main people that you bring in essentially for pre-production. And then when the production gets started, yes, you'd have kind of head of maybe art and costume beforehand, but realistically, it's kind of, they come in once most of the plans have been laid down, and then you get to below the line. So most of the ones you've highlighted there are above the line. Editor would be in post, obviously. And it should be pointed out that this obviously does not take into account, for example, the amount of people in hair and makeup, the people in catering, the people doing running the rushes back and forth, the people in grips and lighting, the best boys, which is a great part of the electrician department is best boy, which apparently they years ago wanted to change because it's sexist, and then a couple of like female best boys were just like, no, I worked very hard to get my title of best boy, keep it. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And when I was working on My Happy Ending, it maybe 60-40 male to female, but it's not like we walked around and if you saw a female working like in the camera department, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a woman on set. It wasn't like that, which I think sometimes it sounds like, oh, there's no women in film. It's like, well, there are, But the trouble is, you don't get the best Oscar for best catering.
For
you
best
don't
boy.
get Oscar for best boy. You don't get it for locations. These are just like roles that people are in. The production office, the people, working out all the hotels for everyone to stay in the accommodation, and ringing up for the food for people, and just doing all the lot behind the scenes stuff in kind of the office that we had set up. It was about 50-50, if not 60-40 towards the female side as well. So, we are talking directors here specifically. But, there are lots and lots of jobs that, women are saying. And I'm not saying this is completely solved and there's no issues. But to say it's like, there's like only like 5% of the jobs in film are run by women is a bad thing to say, because it's not technically true, and you're looking at the big jobs that get paid, the hundreds of thousands on big Hollywood productions, and not necessarily everyone there. And which is also to say to anyone who's looking to get into film, on the off chance, jobs are there, and if you have to work your way up, maybe it's harder if you're a woman, and we're going to trying to change that, but there are jobs there, and there are lots of women working on the...
I mean the number of men and women both wanting to break into the film industry and, have that as their job, it's not reflected by the number of people currently in those fields at present. And obviously, all change takes time to implement, and it's like we've had over a century of male dominance in the arts, and it takes time to change. But I mean, obviously there's no easy solution, is there?
We should also probably put out caveats that as 3 white Anglo males, we are probably not the greatest position to discuss all.
The irony is not lost on us. That's with 3 dudes talking about this subject, but I think we'd like to consider it. We want to highlight the issues, I think, and just have a general discussion about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've all studied feminist lenses and critical theory, and all we could do is talk about it because we cannot experience it. So, I mean, we could just take what we read, what we learn, and apply it, spread the word, whatever. Kieran, what I think was interesting about what you were saying was, part of the importance of women being in the roles of like director and producer, that stuff, is those are the visible roles.
Yeah.
And
those are the ones that get the Oscars.
Yeah. And also a lot of the ones you talked about were sort of gender role, stereotypical roles, the catering, the makeup, the costumes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I say this, and actually, when we were working on My Happy Ending, the main makeup guy, it was all female except for the head of makeup, who was a guy. And yes, there are some kind of gendered stuff. Our Dit, I think it was a guy, but then I was working in the directors department, so we had 2 directors. We had a first director, a second director, a third director, and then it was me and another graduate student on kind of the floor runners. And the team of directors, 1 male, 1 female, and then the first, second, and third directors were all female. But the trouble is, again, even if you think about the Oscars, what normally gets name checked? It's possibly producers, and actually there are some very good, strong, high-up female producers, Kathleen Kennedy to name one. Whatever you think about her, she's a very important producer in Hollywood at the moment. There are, then you've got the directors, you've got, the writers, the cinematographers. I mean, the thing is, even cinematography, I'm thinking about the Oscars now, they were trying to get that cut off the show.
Broadcast
and then
part,
Yeah, the broadcast part, and then even the things where kind of, even if it's gender stereotyped, kind of women lead the way in things like hair and makeup and costume and set design and art department and stuff like that. Those do get awards. They don't get broadcast. They don't get shown. Like, if you do, it's the other awards in the night, and you get like, oh, this film won a shot of somebody coming up to collect an award and about a 5-second soundbite on to the next one. So even the ones that women are playing, a very big roles in, are the ones that kind of get side checked anyway.
Well, in the recent past, it's Greta Gerwig and Best Actress. Like those are going to be the biggest female names there. And you have to go. I don't even know. Has there been a year with 2 women nominated for, like, maybe not Best Director, but 2 women had directed Best Picture movies?
No.
No, I don't believe so. That was one of the controversies in the last few years. Essentially, but basically, just shove a load of men in there, and then you have your token woman, who's at least as if not more talented than the rest of them, and plenty of other examples of like sterling work from women behind the camera, and just seems to be still passed over even to this day.
Well, we're here to
just to quickly name check that. I believe there are 7 women in total. I need to double check the list because I found it at some point. There are 7 women that have been nominated for Best Director. Only 3 have ever won it, and they've all been in the 21st century. One of them, I can't remember who it is, was nominated twice.
So is that Bigelow, Zhao, and Campion?
Yes, they're the 3 that have won it. Yeah. And I'm just finding an article to get the nominations because I think there's been another one since this, but I'm looking on just pure wow. I think it is. Lina Wertmuller, 7 Beauties, was the first person to be nominated. Jane Campion in 1993 was the second nomination. So she's the only person that's been nominated twice for the piano, and I think piano won. Have we done piano, Jacob?
No, we did. What's the one with Mark Ruffalo? We
did In the
Thriller.
Cut. Yeah, I remember watching the piano for it. It's a beautiful soundtrack. Got nominated in 93. 20 years ago was the third nomination for a woman, and that is Sofia Coppola for Lost in Translation. We then get Catherine Bigelow, who I will be discussing later, for The Hurt Locker, and that was the first win.
How did I forget to do Sofia Coppola for this episode?
I don't know. But then, thankfully, it has started to shift recently, because now you do see everything starting to catch up. So Greta Gerwig gets nommed for Lady Bird. Emerald Fennell gets nommed for Promising Young Woman. Chloe Zhao gets... Lady Bird 2017, Promising Young Woman was 2021. Oh, in which case, there has been a year with 2 noms, because Chloe Zhao was also nommed that year for Nomadland and won it. She was the second winner ever. And then last year before, 2022 at the very least, Jane Campion won for Power of the Dog. So it has taken nearly 100 years of Oscars to get a woman nominated for Best Director twice. Make of that what you will.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here to talk about women who probably should have been nominated.
And we've obviously timed this very well with the Marvels coming out tomorrow.
Yeah. By happy accident, Nia Costa's going to be the third. Fourth woman to direct a Marvel, an MCU film. So.
Spoiler alert: the reviews are not great.
Yeah.
I will be reviewing it for the film magazine. Maybe look for that.
Who are the 4?
Monday. So Chloe Zhao, Kate Shortland.
Yeah. Who's the other one?
No, hang on a sec.
Anna Boden, co-directed Captain Marvel.
Co-directs, with Ryan Fleck, is it? Yeah. So they're the 4 who've been involved in the MCU so far. Obviously, we've had a fair few more involved on the small screen of their TV shows, but I mean, it's when kind of getting into those big kind of high profile kind of projects, isn't it?
And I think more than anything, being allowed to take a loss.
Yeah. I mean, my go-to example of this is always, despite Charlize Theron getting an Oscar for it, a Monster. That was it took her Patty Jenkins another decade, before she came back to making a film again with Wonder Woman. And it's not like she couldn't kind of have like a proof of her success, that she directed this this Oscar-winning performance. Just several projects she was involved with, stalled and didn't get off the ground, couldn't get funding. So it's the less women directors, I think, have got less of fewer opportunities to fail. Just it's like a one striking her out kind of thing. It seems sometimes.
Yeah. Well, do we want to start with Catherine Bigelow, or do we want to save her for last since she's the biggest?
I mean, I that's up to you. I mean, we can start with Bigelow because I mean there have been other very important female film directors before that. We've listed a few, and obviously Jane Campion. I think in the last couple of decades, I think Greta Gerwig will now start to be kind of getting up there, but really Jane Campion and Catherine Bigelow have been kind of the two major ones where every couple of years they're allowed a decent sum of money and some A-listers to go make what they want. Even Sofia Coppola, like it's like every 4 or 5 years, and I think she had a massive knock because starring in Godfather 3. And I don't know what was the budget for her first film, because in the nicest way, if she didn't get a hand in because she's Francis Ford Coppola's daughter, I would be surprised. In the nicest way possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, do we want to start with Bigelow?
Yeah, let's start with Let's start with the big name.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were all discussing
the
last
Virgin
week.
Suicides was $6.1 million, by the way.
Okay.
Okay.
Decent budget for your first film.
Yeah, it's not like a 1 million thing out the back of nowhere kind of, little schlock horror picture Saw kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's just kind of always made whatever she wanted, because she's from a prestige artistic directing lineage now.
Yeah, I was going to say if Francis Ford Coppola can't get enough money for it, to help her out, I don't know who can. But then again, Francis Ford Coppola in the past couple of decades, we haven't really seen him, to be honest. And now, what do you want, 120 mil for Megalopolis? And we're all just smirking behind our pants going, never going to happen. It's just not.
It's going to happen.
No, it might do, but it'll be awful. I'm sorry. It's not going to be great. Anyway, Catherine Bigelow.
I do want to say the only Catherine Bigelow movie I have seen is Point Break. So
you haven't even seen Hurt Locker?
No, I didn't want to watch Iraq War movies in 2008 or whatever, and I just haven't watched it since.
Okay,
watch Near Dark. It's really fun.
Yeah, Near Dark is great. So Catherine Bigelow is an interesting one. So she was born in California, in San Carlos. She went to kind of university and originally studied fine arts, and then she did a little bit. She also apparently teamed up, and I'm getting this off Wiki. She apparently teamed up with Philip Glass on a real estate venture. Philip Glass is a composer of many things, and this is actually quite funny. I can link it back in. Amongst many things that the casual viewer might know him for. He also did the score for Candyman. The recent 2021 adaptation was directed by Nia DaCosta. So I can bring it back however you want. So it's just really weird, all these things. And one of the other things I found hilarious is the fact that one of her, essentially she did that, went out for a bit, and then went back into the graduate film program at Columbia University to study theory and criticism and get her MA. Her master's, one of her master's tutors was Andrew Saris, who is a major exponent, or was a major exponent, kind of in the second wave, picking up off auteur theory, which is, for anyone that's studied auteur theory, is essentially there are certain directors that are almost a class of their own, like canonically great directors. And the original list, and it hasn't been changed that much, is incredibly white and incredibly male.
Yeah, I was going to say that you won't find many women on that list. Will you?
Yeah, I've actually I've read his book on that first, like, I don't know, auteur handbook, whatever he called it. And, it has, like, the top tier, Ophuls and Hawks and whoever else is, I don't remember exactly.
John Ford and Hitchcock.
Yeah. And then he has the next tier, and then you get to the end, and he's like, pretentious Kubrick, because it was written in like the early 70s. And then for Coppola, he was like promising, but he hadn't made much yet.
I just found it very interesting that kind of one of the leading exponents of auteur theory, kind of one of his students was somebody who kind of challenged the very male-dominated kind of idea of that going forward. So she did a short film called The Setup in 1978, and apparently submitted it as part of her kind of work at the university. And eventually she gets around to making The Loveless in 1981, which stars, amazingly, Willem Dafoe in one of his first lead roles. And it's a biker movie. It's incredibly slow. It's incredibly low budget. And it's incredibly, we got some money together. We have a script. Let's make something. So it's one of those ones where a lot of the dialogue isn't great. A lot of the acting isn't great. And it's one of those ones where it's kind of so slow that there's kind of long pauses in the editing between dialogue and conversations. So what do you do for fun around here? Not much. Not much, eh? No. It's one of those kind of really fun. It has some interesting bits near the end, and it's a lot better directed than a lot of first features would be. Some of the shots are very controlled, it's some, especially kind of late 70s, early 80s first features can be very point and shoot. And if anyone has seen anyone's first directing starting out in horror, lots of low budget were very point and shoot. This has a definite level of control about it. And then 6 years later, she comes out with Near Dark, which many horror fans will know of. And it's essentially kind of, you had two films, that vampire movies that year, kind of vampire punk kind of rebellion movies. You had Near Dark and you had Lost Boys. And this is kind of like the down south southern gothic road trip version. Whereas Lost Boys is almost kind of almost the Spielberg. I think the way to describe it is like Lost Boys is almost like a Spielbergian kind of.
It's definitely more mainstream and kind of accessible.
Yeah. Whereas
just that bit, it's that bit nastier and kind of more kind of stomach churning, I suppose.
It's a little bit nastier. And there are elements that you can see would go on to inspire things like the kind of Southern Gothic vampires comes back in something like John Carpenter's Vampires. And also as I was watching it, because I hadn't seen it, I think it was one of those ones where I was like, I swear I've seen it, and then you watch it again and go, maybe I actually haven't. And it reminded me, I think there's a lot of inspiration for what would be in Dr. Sleep, the Shining sequel, the traveling kind of group, the Knot, I think it is, or something of the Knot. Stephen King's my favorite. That's it. And led by who's it that leads it? Another name is Rosa.
The Hat plays
Lady. Yeah, Rosa the Hat.
Rosa Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson in the film.
That's it. I could see her face and can't see the name. Essentially going around in a beat-up RV. They're described as vampires, killing people and feeding off to keep themselves living. There is very much a similarity there, and I would not be surprised if this was a direct inspiration. One of the interesting things about that is that, even for a female director, there's an element of the manic pixie girl in there, which is a trope which we are now trying to stay away from because it's just had it rammed down our throat. Like, male writers do this a lot, and then we go, oh, we didn't realize we were doing this, but yeah, it is an issue. Okay, yeah, you called us. I've done it myself before. I got alerted to the fact this was a thing, and I go, oh, okay, right, yeah, okay, not good. So there's that. She then gets into the year after she marries James Cameron. Amazingly, yes, that James Cameron. And in 1990,
which other one is there?
Yeah, well, yes, the one that has where literally anything he touches turns to billions of dollars, aside from like one or two movies that we kind of forgot existed. But obviously, even by now, he's done Terminator, he's done Aliens. He's a big enough name to have some heft behind him. And I think he's one of the producers on Blue Steel, which is kind of a thriller movie with Jamie Lee Curtis as a new cop, and she's trying to track down a serial killer, which keeps haunting her. And then the year after, I think, is where she kind of makes her mark properly, because out comes Point Break. Now, Point Break is weird because, like, it's got, there we go.
Weird.
There's my tagline.
You
it's
mean
weird.
amazing.
Yeah. No, but it's the thing I was doing watching again. Point Break was one of those ones where I'm like, I have seen it, and then I watch it and go, have I actually, or have I just like seen a lot of it enough so that I think I've seen it?
Did I watch Roadhouse and a surfing movie and just kind of a cop
and
movie
lots of hot fuzz? You know,
yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, have I just seen Hot Fuzz and thought I'd seen Point Break as well? But Keanu Reeves wasn't the massive name at the time. He was just starting to rise. And he's not the greatest actor in this. I'm sorry. There are times when it works, and there are times where he's delivering stuff where it's exactly the same, and it's really forced and really over the top. I'm going to have to take you down if you're not good. It's just like, whoa, calm it down, Keanu. So yeah, that's the one I think that makes her a name. It doesn't initially catch on massively. It takes a while to kind of pick up the steam, but that was produced by Cameron as well, which probably helped. And it became a cult phenomenon over a while, after a bit. And it's got Keanu Reeves, it's got Patrick Swayze in it as well. There's some other guys in there as well. And obviously it's now the cult classic that it is. Then she has a bit of a dip. You know, she brings out a few movies in the next sort of 10, 15 years. Strange Days is underappreciated, cyberpunk movie with Ralph Fiennes, Angela Bassett's in it. Proper gritty 90s cyberpunk. There's less neon. It feels almost like it's got like an Escape from New York dystopian kind of grimy vibe. But it's got bits of the hard rock and trading, wheeling, dealing of a novel like Snow Crash, which is one of my favorites. Weight of Water and is it K9 the Submarine? I think it is. K19 the Widowmaker submarine movie. I admittedly have not seen. Those are two of the three I haven't, and I haven't seen the latest one, Detroit, as it is. So she brings out those, and everything kind of, you know, those weren't greatly received as it is. But then 2008 comes around, and she comes out with Hurt Locker. And for better or for worse, Hurt Locker is not her best movie. Even though if I haven't seen every single one of her films, it's not her best movie.
Because it's Point Break.
Point Break is good. So far, I actually really like Strange Days as number one at the moment. I think it's just really well done. But Hurt Locker, for better and for worse, very simply, goes and wins Best Picture and gets her Best Director, making her the first woman ever to win Best Director. And for better or for worse, that is an achievement which, whenever we go to the history books, Hurt Locker will be there. You know, for whatever happens in 300 years' time, if films are still a thing, or even if they're not, when people are finding this art form, if we're into holograms and actives now and whatever, when they look up who was the first female director to win, it'll be Catherine Bigelow and Hurt Locker. And at least in kind of Western audiences, this is groundbreaking. I don't know, obviously, things like Cannes. I think Jane Campion won for the piano at Cannes director. Although she didn't get the Oscar for it, you know, and maybe BAFTA's done it. And I don't know about things like, you know, Blue Dragon Awards in South Korea and Chinese awards and Japanese and Australia and things like that. But in terms of kind of the ones that we are aware of, for better or for worse, the Oscar's the big one, and Hurt Locker will always be there. It's not. It's a strange movie as well, because when I first watched it the only time I'd seen it before this was for A-level media studies. And for kind of presentations of kind of others, people who are othered. And when you watch it with that kind of thing of going, it's very pro-America, and perhaps it is, you know, a lot of the kind of figures, and it follows, it's an Iraq war movie, and it follows essentially a bomb disposal squad over a period of time as Jeremy Renner's character kind of comes out and experiences a lot of stuff in this, the end of his tour. And a lot of the kind of people there in Iraq, the civilians, people there, they are portrayed very negatively. And the opening, which is realistically all anyone remembers, and just that one slow-mo shot. That's it. That's the poster child. We got that one shot out of it. We spent all this money. That's all we needed. We can go home now. The rest of it we can hardly remember. But it's a bomb disposal, and the person with the phone that's going to set off the IED is literally at a butcher's stall, and there are meat carcasses hanging down in front of him. There's no like easier symbolism than this to set off everything. Every time we see a person now, that's not American, they are a butcher. Even the good ones, the ones that have nothing to do with it, that's all we set up. And there are lots of shots, and it is a film all about watching. Watching on the little robot screen as they go to detonate the IEDs, about being watched. There's people with video cameras, filming them at one point. It's a film about, all the people watching them, about them spying on the others and trying to do that.
The Peeping Tom sequel we didn't know we needed.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's lots of reflections there. There's, through the scopes of lenses, in water, in bits of glass, in mirrors. And it's shot differently to some of her earlier films as well. I was saying before how even things like Loveless was not a point-and-shoot movie. There are very, quite an awful lot of it is mounted tripods, and very controlled camera movements. Even something like Blue Steel, there's a lot of control in there. The Hurt Locker is directed differently. It's very much documentary style. There's lots of zooms and, kind of mid-pans and stuff, which I equate with James Cameron doing an Avatar, and I still hate him for that. And, it's just a thing that I really don't like people doing. I think David Gordon Green started doing it a lot in the Halloween movies. I didn't notice it in... he might have done it in Exodus as well. I didn't like it there. Maybe it's a James Cameron thing. Anyway, it does it. You see it also a lot in something like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where almost every shot they get like half the shot in, and then they zoom in very slightly. And that is a lot of it. And so it feels very not... It's almost, I think, trying to bring about a kind of documentary, this is reality kind of thing. But overdoing it to kind of subvert that in a way, almost like double bluffing, reverse psychology, trying to overdraw your attention to the fact that this is meant to be real and reality, and this is how the Americans really were, which brings attention to the fact that it's not. And I'm wondering if that's anything to do with kind of the media at the time and how America was presented in the Iraq War. And to be honest, I haven't done as much research into this as I could have done.
She was really influenced by The Office, I think.
Obviously. Yeah, because then you get to Zero Dark 30 that comes out a few years later, which got nommed for Best Picture. It actually got nommed for Best
And
Director.
has Jim. Oh?
What?
Has Jim from The Office.
Oh, because yeah. I was thinking more also it's got Jessica Chastain, which got her first or second Oscar nom. Again, really well received. It got nommed for Best Picture, didn't win. But that, again, is Middle Eastern movie as well. But that's almost like Hurt Locker, the kind of setting of Hurt Locker, combined with kind of the CIA stuff of Point Break. And the styles kind of converge here. So it's not as shaky. There's some stuff which is slower and more controlled. And I think it's a slightly better film for it. I preferred it slightly over Hurt Locker. It's still not the greatest movie ever, but it's very well done and very accomplished. Detroit, however, that came out in 2017, has fallen over the radar and box office bomb, and that was 2017. That's the last we've seen of her. But hopefully, she's got at least one more in her. Technically, she's directed 10 films now, so if it's on Tarantino's timescale, she'd bow out, and nothing more to do.
By the way, I was wrong. John Krasinski is in 13 Hours. That's his jingoistic war movie.
You got confused with the Michael Bay film. Oh dear.
Oh, no.
Is it Chris Pratt in Zero Dark 30?
Yes. Yeah, Chris Pratt.
Yes, that's who you're thinking.
Joel. Yeah. There were a lot of people I was thinking of.
Yeah, there's a lot of people involved in that. John Barrowman has a cameo. point as well. I'm just like, oh, hello, Captain Darkness.
If you're going to get someone confused, like getting one sitcom star confused for another, kind of understandable.
Yeah. Bigelow's had kind of the peaks and troughs over her career. There are several motifs that kind of go throughout. Voyeurism and looking is definitely one of them, which is very much part of Hurt Locker. There are elements in it, especially in something like Strange Stage, which is all about viewing from somebody else's vantage point in their memories. There's little bits of it even in Blue Steel of what you see and don't see and how that affects a case. And as much as I hate the use of slow-mo in general, at least Campion has a consistent point of very often using slow motion when she does use it at a point where kind of it's very subjective. That kind of time in a tense situation, time would slow down for somebody and does it very sparingly as opposed to somebody just shoving loads of slow-mo on the screen for aesthetic purposes, Zack Snyder, which is when I don't like it. They just go, let's put it in slow-mo, looks cool. No. So, we have these things that, thematic and visual trends over a while, which is part of auteur theory. She's got an established body of work which can be analysed, which is auteur theory. She's won Oscars for directing, which I don't, and several of the films are critically acclaimed. Therefore, that fits in with auteur theory. Realistically, if we were going by the old rules, there would be no reason not to include her as an auteur.
Yeah.
Whether that would ever happen, I don't know, because we all know auteur theory is bunk. But does she buy into it since she studied under Andrew Sarris?
Who knows? We shall have to ask her. One of the quotes I can't remember. I probably won't be able to get it up now. Is she had some quote saying, "Look, people complaining about women directors and her directing, and she's like, well, I can't change my gender and I refuse to stop making movies. So tough." Essentially. It's just like, this is who I am, I make movies, I direct movies. And she also comment before I leave off Bigelow, she's had a comment that did I say Campion? Okay, I meant Catherine Bigelow.
This was back when you talk about cinematography. It's fine.
Okay.
You know what you meant.
Yeah.
I thought he was saying Campion had a lot of slow motion. I was like, sure.
No. I mean, Catherine Bigelow. The two are kind of contemporaries, are working at the same time, very close at the same time. So I apologize if I say Catherine Bigelow. Yeah. Like, I've lost the train of thought now. Well,
sorry.
Probably a good idea to shut me up at this point. She's an established body of work. If it was back in the day, there would be no argument that she, according to the original rules of auteur theory, you could put her up there. She won't get it because auteur theory is punk. More than anything, I think that she is important.
In the capacity that we buy into the categorization of authorship in film, she classifies based on whatever standards exist to create that classification. Whether or not we fully agree with it. There's so many different ones at this point.
Yeah, and again, whatever happens now, she will be in the history books as finally breaking that ground. I think in the 82nd Oscars, something like that. Well done. And bearing in mind, back in the day, you used to have different categories for like best film in color and best film in black and white when they were still in that transition period. So this is the situation that we're in. But
really don't need further ghettoization of Oscar categories, do we?
No, they're already bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
All right. Sam, do you want to tell us about Kelly Reichardt?
Yeah, I'll shut up now.
So, yes. So I've picked one of my favourite women directors, Kelly Reichardt. She's made... I wouldn't categorise her as one of the most prolific kind of directors out there, but probably in comparison to of the opportunities women the industry get, so she's probably up there. So she's done 8 films since her debut in '94. There were the gap between her first and second projects, so it was 12 years. which she said was she basically just said she couldn't get a movie made. And she says it had a lot to do with being a woman. She went to various people, trying to get projects off the ground. But yeah, she says her gender was a factor in raising the money. And she said during that time, it was impossible to get anything going. So I just said, F you, and did Super 8 shorts for a few years instead. She's critically acclaimed as kind of. I mean, she might be like a household name, but I think she's kind of a big hit in like the art house kind of world. And I think all films were well received, but hardly any of them made any money, which is incredible considering I don't think any of them are. I think her most expensive film is still only $2 million, and even that kind of barely made a profit. So it's just. Is it just people not going to see them, not getting the audience? I'm not sure. I mean, the film I'm going to talk about in a bit is First Cow, which had the unfortunate. It got made before the pandemic, but got released just before it, so it kind of only got a fairly limited release window before theatres were shut down, and then. I saw it in the UK a couple of years later when when this finally opened up again and actually got released there. But she's well known for being like a champion of the working class, and her films been very kind of slow and contemplative and kind of methodical and quite open ended. You don't normally get a neat kind of tying up at the end of characters' journeys. Nothing's tied up in a bow. It's usually quite open ended. And some people would argue that's maybe a little bit dramatically unsatisfactory, but I kind of see it as her films. They're like snapshots of these kind of people's lives. Their lives do go on. We're just not privy to like the rest of their experiences. She described her films as just glimpses of people passing through, and on a kind of open-ended kind of films, she says, "I'm suspicious of absolutes." There's something satisfying about watching an old film when the music rises up and the words come at you at the end. But it would seem absurd to do that at the end of one of my films. It would make them seem lopsided because they're all so short, they cover so little time. We don't know where these people were before. We spent a week with them, and then on they went. She's also well known for, I think, probably one of the few professional directors, I would say, who's been quite open about the fact that she continues teaching while she's making films. So in between the projects, she'll go back to school and she'll do some lecturing. She has got a residency at a university, and it's basically just to keep the bills paid, basically, because she'll spend all the time raising some money to get new projects off the ground, but after that, then she'll need to go back and supplement kind of her income, through teaching. There was a recent interview with her and Michelle Williams, and Michelle Williams is one of her frequent collaborators. They've done 4 films together, including her latest film, which is called Showing Up, and that's out later this year, I think. But Williams said in a variety interview that Kelly spent a lot of time on friends' couches. Even as a revered filmmaker, she teaches at Bard College to supplement her filmmaking. And because she makes films so infrequently, she doesn't have health insurance through the DGA, and she has a theatre named after her, but she has to teach to get health insurance, which is a bit of a state of things.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, I mean, she's a lot of. I think a lot of women directors, once they've got their kind of their acclaimed kind of work, they've been critically recognised, and they've got a few notable films on their belt. They might try and make the leaps, big kind of blockbuster projects, like Catherine Bigelow did, like Niles Costa did, obviously go over to Marvel, and a few other people go over to Marvel and things like that. Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman. But I think Kerry Reichardt, she kind of objects to that. Even if she got the opportunity, I think she is one of these indie directors who would turn that down. I think, would turn down like the freedom and kind of she almost likes the limitations of a smaller budget and, telling her kind of personal stories. Often the usual set in Oregon and kind of states like that, like rural kind of settings and following just ordinary people and their lives. I think, as I said, yes, films none of them have been box office successes. Certain Women is the most successful, and that only made 1.1 million back on. Hang on, I want to check the budget on that. It's probably not. It's made 1.1 million back on a So even that wasn't really a success. That was nearly 2 million budget, so it might have just about made its budget back, but obviously wasn't profitable in the end. One of the funny things about Kelly Reichardt still teaching is there's Jake, I don't know if you're aware of this, with obviously being so recently back in academia. There's a Rate My Professor, where students can.
I have heard of it.
Yeah, yes. Where students can submit scores, for their lecturers. And that Reichardt's Rate My Professor reviews are surprisingly quite mediocre. She has a 3.3 out of 5 currently. One former student writes, "She is tough and will rip your work to pieces, but she knows what she's talking about and is smart. She can make people cry, but she means well and has a great knowledge of the film industry."
I think that's the kind of lecturer that you want.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So just a quick whistle-stop tour through her 8 films. She's made to date. So, 1994, she made River of Grass, which is a very low budget, kind of dark working class family drama. Then following that, 12 years later, it was Old Joy, which is about 2 guys on a road trip. Third film, first one with Michelle Williams, was Wendy and Lucy, which is about a homeless woman and her dog, basically just wandering around trying to eat. Then after that, another project with Michelle Williams, Meek's Cutoff, which was quite a bleak kind of wagon train western. So first kind of period piece. Then following that, slightly more commercial, but not really, was Night Moves, which was an eco-terrorist thriller with Jesse Eisenberg. So again, aside from Michelle Williams, probably the biggest star she'd worked with up to that point. Then following that, she did Certain Women, which, as I said, was one of her more profitable films and definitely one of her most acclaimed. I think it's the only one of hers in the Criterion collection so far. Take that what you will. And that's an ensemble drama set in rural Montana, following several seemingly disconnected kind of women and their lives and times, but turns out they've all got a little bit of a link. And that was notable for having Lily Gladstone and her breakthrough role. Obviously 10 years before Kills of the Flower Moon. And following that, she did First Cow, which I'll be talking about. And the latest film, again with Michelle Williams, is Showing Up, which is about a sculptor and again getting by with her life. So they're all kind of fairly low key, kind of intimate kind of dramas, just following ordinary people in their lives, and nothing too sensational or kind of. I think, if you've been unkind, you say nothing particularly dramatic there, but I think slice of life, real. Kind of real for real people. There is something inherently dramatic about that. I think you can always kind of get on side with her kind of films. My favourite film of hers is First Cow, which was from 4 years ago. That's again another period piece set in Oregon, kind of like documenting like the early early times of kind of settling in the territories, in the 19th century in the States.
Does it use the Oregon Trail video game?
Should do, shouldn't it? It's so it follows a forager called Cookie, who meets an immigrant entrepreneur, King Lou, and they strike a fast friendship, and they decide to make their fortune by through baked goods and selling them at a local settlement. But what makes their cakes like such a runaway success? They're basically like batter cakes, almost like donuts. Basically, what they're making is the fact that they're made of milk, and the only milk to be found in the territory comes from the only cow in the territory who's owned by the local landowner, played by Toby Jones, and he comes by one day and really takes a liking to these cakes and says, "Oh, you should go and make these for a party I'm having." Little does he know that these two guys are stealing the milk from his cow. So it's a bit like, it's probably the tensest film I've ever seen about baking. I mean, it's also like a mini heist movie where it's like they're sneaking into his fields at night, stealing the milk, going back, making all these cakes and hoping he doesn't find out. But obviously, inevitably he does, and there's a bit of an upset from that. I mean, I might not have made that sound particularly exciting, but that's positively kind of thrilling, by Kelly Reichardt's normal film standards. I mean, Night Moves, I suppose, has them trying to set up a bomb on a dam at one point, so I suppose that's fairly tense as well. But generally, it's just a film about two guys trying to kind of improve their lot in life a bit, and there's sort of a bit of a queer reading to it. You could say, maybe that they're looking for something a bit more. Their friendship goes a bit further. It doesn't explicitly, but you could read it that way. But yeah, just these two like kindred spirits, kind of turn into petty crime just to make their meager kind of existence slightly more bearable. It's quite interesting. It's one of those rare kind of westerns, which is what it is essentially, which kind of presents like a territory, like American frontier, as a bit of a cultural melting pot, because obviously so many different cultures and immigrant communities, made the trek across the states, and settled in these places. So obviously there would have been, it wouldn't have been a white kind of area. It would have been lots of different cultures and languages and everything else, lots of different communities, trying to get by, which isn't what kind of traditional westerns kind of have you believe, being that all westerns pretty much up to the late 20th century would have had it that they just towns full of white cowboys, shooting at other white cowboys, and never heard of any other non-white people.
It's only just started to change really now.
I know, and I mean, again, get off a bit of a tangent, but the really stats that around the time of The Harder They Fall being released on Netflix, there was a stat about, I think, like around, I think it's a third, if not half, of cowboys were black. Because a lot of slaves had obviously escaped from the plantation and stuff. And how else they're going to make a living? They're going to become cowboys. They're going to go out there and try and make a living that way. So yeah, I don't think Kelly Reichardt's ever likely to change kind of her working ethic. She is distinct. She's got certain kind of themes she comes back to time and time again. Certain things she likes to explore. All of films are always going to be small and intimate, and they'll take their time, but they reward you. You do get engrossed in them. And none of them particularly kind of hard sits. I think her longest film is 2 hours. It's they tend to be like a good deal short on that. I don't think she'll ever break big. I don't think she wants to. I think she's probably just happy chipping things away. She'd probably like to make a bit more money, so she doesn't have to be as reliant on her, on teaching every moment when she's not making a film. But she's got her champions, a lot of critics. Obviously, Michelle Williams is a very important collaborator with her, and will keep working with her, as much as her style continues to rise. She's a big star these days. She started working with Kelly Reichardt when she was unknown, pretty much, with Wendy and Lucy. But yeah, I think she's probably pretty satisfied with her lot. But I would say definitely, if you're not familiar with her work, give a couple of films a go. I would say definitely First Cow, definitely Wendy and Lucy, and Meek's Cut Off is it's an interesting western again with Michelle Williams. Just a wagon train, just a particularly nightmarish kind of trail, across the the old West American wilderness. Basically, everything that can go wrong on their journey does at some point. So it's an interesting one. That
Sam, I will fight you on your description of Michelle Williams as a relative unknown when she had been on Dawson's Creek. I don't want to.
All right. What year was Dawson's Creek again?
I think it was like 98.
All right.
Yeah,
all
it
right,
97, 98. Kevin Williamson apparently had because it was Kevin Williamson that wrote it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He kind of got ideas and got vague scripts written before Scream, but he kind of needed Scream to have the kudos.
Let me rephrase. Yes, she was known to fans of a TV show, but she wasn't doing big Hollywood movies at that point.
An American teen drama.
Yeah.
Also, Dawson is obsessed with Spielberg. That's like his whole thing.
Right. Okay.
He's insufferable.
Yeah. I also say that Kelly Reichardt, she's very good friends with Todd Haynes. He kind of got helped her with a few projects, and he was the one who actually advised that she kind of move back to. Because I think she was born and raised in Florida, kind of started working in the film industry in New York, but then he said, "Oh, I'll go somewhere a bit more interesting, go somewhere a bit more scenic." So she chose Oregon. That's the state she chooses to set all her films now. I think she finds the landscape quite inspiring.
A bit like how pretty much all Stephen King stories are set in Maine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it would be interesting, like a states map, of all the. Just put like a director. You could probably do a director per state, couldn't you? I would imagine quite comfortably.
At this point, yeah.
So that's pretty much what I've got to say about Kelly Reichardt. She's a director well worth checking out.
Nice. All right. Well, I picked Dee Rees, and the reason for that is I've had two different professors cover her at two different universities. So I'd seen her debut film and the short already, and I've seen Mudbound a few times before. I'm not exactly sure why, but I like it. It's a good movie.
It's good.
And then, so I realized once we had started this that her television film Bessie was a film and not like a TV series on HBO. So I should have watched it. It stars Queen Latifah. It's about Bessie Smith, the blues singer, and her latest film was I can never remember the name of it. The Last Thing He Wanted, which is based on a Joan Didion book of the same name. So Dee Rees, she's a little on the younger side. She's in her, I think, mid 40s. Never mind, she's 46. And so she had been working in like advertising or commercials, something like that. And she decided, I want to go to film school. And so she got into NYU's Tisch Arts School, or whatever exactly it's called, but that's where Scorsese went, back before it was called Tisch. That's where Spike Lee went, and Spike Lee was her mentor, her advisor, and he was a really big influence on like her and helping her move her career forward. So she worked with him on Inside Man and When the Levees Broke in 2006. Kieran, I guess her experience is kind of close to yours there, where like she's on real film sets helping somebody like create a film in some way. I'm guessing she was more on the creation side than the production side, but she got to see firsthand like, what is this big time auteur director doing? And I've yet to work with a big time auteur director, but I mean the director I worked with had won for the Oscar for Best Animated Short a couple of years beforehand, so I think it was a best animated short. I'll double check. Hey, I mean, you know how many people haven't won for that? I mean, that's a big deal. But yeah, but Spike Lee, obviously on a very different level. And in my top 10 best films of all time, I talked about how he works to like help produce filmmakers that are not just white Anglo dudes. He works with women. He works with people of color. He works with, tons of people during his time there. He gives a lot of talks. Just a big proponent of getting people into film, getting people opportunities. And so while she was working under him, she wrote the script for Pariah, which was her debut film. And let's see. Her graduate thesis, she made the short film. So that's where that came from. People saw it. It got funding, and it was a really big movie. It was actually only the second movie from a black woman that was accepted into the Criterion Collection. The other one being Dry White Season from that is Eugene Palsy.
Okay.
Sorry if I mispronounced that, but that was in 1989. I don't know what year it was accepted, but that was the Criterion Collection's second movie from a black woman, and she got to go through the closet and pick out her movies or whatever. She went with Mouchette from Robert Bresson, Le Blanc, Always for Pleasure, a compilation of documentarians films from nearly 50-year career of Marlon Riggs, Tongues Untied, which was released as part of Signifying Works of Marlon Riggs. So she also picked A Woman Under the Influence from John Cassavetes. So
yes,
nice.
Respect.
So yeah, I mean, she comes from a strong film tradition background because of her work at NYU and specifically with Spike Lee. And I don't know his specific views on auteur theory, but we know he was taught it, and presumably she was taught it while going through there. And her first film is very much in that mold where it's semi-autobiographical. It's very much like an art house film. It's very personal. And I'll get more into that one because that's the movie I'm going to be talking about. Bessie, she made in 2015. It was for HBO. So I should have watched it, but I didn't. It stars Queen Latifah. It doesn't have a budget listed because it's an HBO film, but you would have to presume that it has a pretty decent budget. HBO is known for their premier television content that they are not afraid to spend on. So she actually, across all of her films, has worked with the same editor. Her name is Meiko Kametsuna, and she's also worked with like a variety of cinematographers. I didn't actually look up this guy, Bobby Bukowski, but I will real quick. Yeah, it looks like he's kind of an older gentleman, but she worked with a younger guy, and she worked for Mudbound. It was with Rachel Morrison, and they were nominated for cinematography for that movie.
Was she the first woman to be nominated for Best Cinematography at the Oscars? Got that in the back of my mind.
She might have been. I cannot tell you for certain.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem unlikely. In 2022, 7% of the cinematographers were women. And that, whatever. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about Reese. So she made Mudbound in 2017. That one's a story of two families in Mississippi during like World War II, and a couple of the sons go off to World War II. They change a lot, but they come back home and find that things aren't very different. And it's a drama, a historical drama, and really digs into like the racism of the South, but also the way that people connect with people no matter their race, and how hopefully younger generations will leave behind the racism of older ones. So that then her next movie, the latest one, it's $100 million production. It was distributed by Netflix. I don't know if they produced it, but
wow.
The last thing he wanted. What's up?
I was just going to say, you could make 100 Kelly Reichardt films for that.
You could buy her some health insurance for a fraction.
Yeah.
Netflix is not producer. I've just got the wiki up. They are not listed as a production company, but they are the distributor.
Nice.
But I would very much suggest that they will have had some input into it. Because quite often that's how a distributor works. And they're just like, yeah, producer, but if we're going to distribute it, we want these things there. Or perhaps they will give more money to be allowed to distribute it if certain things are there. And, the better the film and the more people are in it, the more somebody's going to want to distribute the film because they get the money back.
Kieran, you say the people that are in it, and that's what this movie is, the people that are in it. Anne Hathaway, Ben Affleck, Rosie Perez, Toby Jones, another Toby Jones movie, Willem Dafoe.
Toby Jones is in everything. We know this.
Yeah, it's quite the cast, and it's very different. Now, I could see feminist themes in the film, and also like political themes as well. It's very much about like the Reaganite era, which is seeing a much, Anne Hathaway's character is a journalist. She like goes to a rally for Ronald Reagan, and it's very reminiscent of like the Trump rallies and liberal reporters going in and hanging out there. But she gets caught up in running arms, and it's very confusing. And it's following the book. I did know that. I looked up the book. I read about the book. I read spoilers as I was watching it to try and like understand what's going on here. And it's a big political conspiracy movie. It's not great.
Yeah. I am looking at the ratings for stuff for it. IMDb has it at 4.3, which is ouch. As it is, apparently, according to Wiki, Rotten Tomatoes has 5% of critics' reviews are positive, average rating of 3.2. Metacritic has it at 35 out of 100. Like, this is...
It's very much a far cry from her other movies. Its only accolade was a Golden Raspberry nomination for Worst Actress from Anne Hathaway, which is unfair. Like, here's the thing. It's not that bad. Like, it's fine. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I wouldn't like give it terrible ratings. I'd be like, this is a middling film. I think there's some interesting things to Anne Hathaway's character. Willem Dafoe is really good. Like, there's some positives in the movie. It's just, it's not great. It's whatever.
Okay, no, carry on. I'll ask the question later.
Okay. Meanwhile, Mudbound was nominated for like 4 different Oscars. So, far cry. But yeah, Pariah is what she's like really known for, and it stars. Let's see. Let me find her name. Her name is Abadero Oduye. She's playing the central character, who is a somewhat closeted lesbian girl. Like, she's not out to her family, but she is going out with like women, hanging out at gay clubs, that kind of stuff. And her family's very conservative. Her dad, he's a little more open to it. It's her mom. Her mom's the big problem. And so there's the mother-daughter relationship. There's the friends relationship between her and her gay friend. I think her name's Laura. I guess I can just look over here and check. Yes, Laura, I had it right.
Very good research skills that we've all done beforehand.
Well, and another thing to mention, if I didn't already, Dee Rees is gay. So this is like a really personal film for her in like maybe not necessarily fully expressing things about her life, but definitely things she's experienced in terms of the way men treat her, in terms of the way that women treat her, in terms of the way that her family treated her, whether that was specific or in some aspect like a family member, not her mom, but it's more powerful to use your mom in the movie.
Yeah, and like your lived experience always informs your art, It's and it comes across as more authentic and genuine, and hard hitting for that.
Yeah, and I mean it's very powerful. Like, I cannot experience what it's like to be a queer person. I guess sexuality is a spectrum. I'm somewhere on it. I'm just more the zero side, and she really gives a lens for audiences to experience, like, what's it like to be a gay black woman in, I guess, probably the mid-2000s, or maybe a little bit earlier. It's not quite clear what the timeline is. But, like, they're listening to music on a computer. They'll listen to some rock music, some underground stuff. They have, like, flip phones, too. So it might be the early 2000s. And the main character, Alika, she is, she has her friend who's, like, very much sort of the butch style of lesbian character. She's very, like, masculine. She has, like, women around her all the time. And she doesn't really feel like she fits into that world. And her friend is kind of, like, dressing her, giving her clothes. And then, her mom is obviously trying to change her. She buys her, like, here's a blouse that I got for you. It's pink. You're going to wear that to church. Her sister's accepting of her, and that's nice. Her dad, I would say, is accepting of her, but he's placating the mother and is not putting his daughter first in that sense. And so she makes a friend. So obviously it's called Pariah. She feels like a pariah. She's alienated from the people around her. She makes a friend because her mom forces it on her. She says, oh, you could walk to school together, safety in numbers. And so at first they don't like each other, and then they start to bond over music. And then they kind of get into a little flirtationship thing, and they end up having sex. And then afterwards, she says, oh, the friend, so she says, oh, I'm not like gay, I just like, women are fine. And so that just fully breaks Alike, and she goes home. And gosh, like, there's a lot of good, lighting in the film, a lot of cool color. It's very much like it's very stylized, but feels real at the same time. Probably mostly due to, like, being in a real apartment, having real, phone, that kind of stuff. Authentic props. But there's a part where she goes into her room and it's just all black in there. It's a very stark difference from what the rest of the movie has looked like. It's a powerful debut overall. Like, you watch that movie and you go, oh my God, I'm watching something, like, this is a very talented filmmaker right here. And so it makes sense how she went from that, a film that evokes so much empathy and could give viewers, something that maybe they can't experience themselves, and something that's personal, something that makes comment on something relevant to discourse in America, where we didn't even have gay marriage in 2011. And then putting, that into a black context too. She goes to a, like, gas station, and there are these guys making fun of like, gay people in front of the dad, gay women, and one guy's, like, really aggressive about it. And it's not hard to see how she went from that to making all of these kind of bigger historical dramas that have, like, big name actors. And her first two were obviously much more successful than the third one. She's been working at TV for a while too. So hopefully she'll come out with another feature within the next couple of years. But yeah, it seems like she's kind of settled into making historical drama. Maybe that's something she's always been interested in. I couldn't quite find, quotes about, like, here's why I did this, here's why I did that. It's more just, like, talking about the movie, relating to characters. But yeah, it would be nice to see her do something else like Pariah in the future. Obviously, she doesn't have to. Make whatever you want. Yeah. Go make your money. Do what makes you happy. But
yeah. And you hope that, like, 100 million project projects, not going down as well as she hopes, isn't like a career killer or anything, because I think more women directors need a second chance. They need to be able to make as many mistakes as the men do.
Yeah, and this is something I was going to bring up as well, because this seems to be a trend which is going on now, and I've brought it up before, of the studios being under pressure to hire women directors. So you have directors that have made 1 or 2, maybe 3 movies that have gathered some acclaim, maybe sort of a 10 mil budget max, and suddenly there are like 100, 150 mil on a dodgy script for major studios.
Suddenly you've made the Marvels.
Well, this is my thing. Nia DaCosta, the Marvel's coming out tomorrow, is not got the greatest reviews so far, and this is what, her 3rd, 4th movie, something like that. Chloe Zhao, Nomadland was her 3rd feature, and Eternals was her 4th. As you were saying there, Des Reese, this was the last thing you wanted, a 3rd feature, at least for the big screen. She's done 1 or 2 bits for HBO and stuff like that. And then, even Catherine Bigelow, I've just found out, in the last month, apparently, she's going to start shooting her 11th film. So ignore my 10 film.
Is it a Marvel movie?
It's not. The only thing I know is called Aurora, but she's starting to shoot it apparently next year. But even this is the biggest gap she's had. Is it? I wonder. Is it because a lot of these kind of even bigger directors have time? I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm going to pick out somebody like James Wan. He had several films before they went. Yeah. Go at it with Fast and Furious. He'd made sort of 6 or 7 features, and not all of them are great. Dead Silence just disappeared.
He had made some blockbuster level horror stuff too. So,
but even those stuff is like, what, The Conjuring's got to be Insidious, like 10 mil max. Is it a thing where and some directors are able to just go massive money and go for it, fine. Even people like Tarantino had to start at the lower levels and did sort of 3 or 4 films. I mean, Jackie Brown wasn't a massive budget. Pulp Fiction wasn't a massive amount of money. Reservoir Dogs, I think Harvey Keitel funded himself pretty much. And then Kill Bill really was the first one to have a decent money behind it. And, even people like Martin Scorsese, before he had any money, relatively speaking, he had sort of 5 or 6 features under his belt. Denis Villeneuve, same thing. Is it at a point now where we're getting these really good, female directors going, we don't have any female directors, shove them in the big ones?
100% it's studios saying, well, there's a problem. We need to look better as, frankly, Disney is having cynical conversations in boardrooms, like in Barbie, saying it's a bunch of guys saying we need to have more women so that we look better. Realistically, those conversations are happening because those things happen in industrial environments that are mostly run by dudes.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to have these directors putting their heart and soul into these movies. It's going to tank. All blame falls on the director. I'm sorry, this is just how it works. Because at the end of the day, realistically, it is they're in charge of what's on screen. But also, the writing could be the worst thing in the world, and the director will get the hit.
Yeah.
It could have had no money behind it and disorganization behind the scenes for eternity. The director will take the hit.
Kevin Feige could be at fault,
and the director will take the hit. When you've got these directors that have got sort of 7 or 8 features slowly working up, normally they've therefore got the accreditation behind them that even if they have something hit them, within 2 or 3 years they're back doing something else. Even I'm gonna bring up Shyamalan. He had a body of work that even when everything massively started going downhill in the late 2000s. 2000s going to 2010, like Avatar and After Earth and stuff like that. He was able to kind of fall back. And 2 years after Earth, he came out with The Visit. The next year, he came out with Split. He got the body of work to be able to do that. Or is that going to, hinder these directors that are on the rise. In that case, we're not allowing them the time to, progress. And we might get a lightning bolt out of the blue. You may get somebody that's just every single thing they do is genius. But even for any director, that is incredibly rare. So what have we got? They can't fund these shorter films, as you were saying with Kelly Reichardt. It's like, I have to teach and everything to make it.
Yeah.
Critically acclaimed. But then as soon as they do one thing which is get any kind of notice, we shove them in something which, is, let's be honest, soulless mass media shoved on the screen, hundreds of millions, which is never going to do anything.
It's a product. It's not a film.
Yeah.
I mean, I do hope with the success of, Greta Gerwig and Barbie, that does result in Greta Gerwig getting a bank check and be able to make whatever she wants next.
The Chronicles of Narnia.
Apparently.
Is that what she's doing?
Yes. Yeah, she is. But also kind of, maybe gets a few more kind of, talented, female filmmakers, their foot in the door. But equally, it's like, everything that isn't a Barbie level hit after that shouldn't be kind of deemed as like, well, that's it. That you had your chance, you're out. It's it needs to be just the same level of scrutiny. The same freedom, I suppose, needs to be applied to anyone who wants to make that kind of scale project as the equivalent man. It's the double standards that's the problem, and getting women into those like top positions in studios and everything, producers having their voices heard and everything can make a difference, but it does take time, to make those changes and for it to filter down.
When you look at the numbers for women in behind the camera roles on female directed movies, those numbers go up, if not above average, way above it.
Yeah, which isn't a surprise, is it? Again, because it filters down, doesn't it? And it's having like-minded individuals around you and giving other artists, the same chance that you've got. It happens. and it needs to happen, and you need to force those changes, I suppose. But it's going to take time.
With these big movies like making pretty much no money, we heard in the past sort of year or two, Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, even Killers of the Flower Moon is not making the money relative to its budget, at least. I wonder if there will be kind of a new market for lots of movies that are sort of around this sort of 10, 15, 20 mil, which are seen as viable options by the bigger studios. That's the thing, because they don't.
Bring back the mid-budget genre of the mid-budget drama. It's not everything needs 100 million.
Because realistically, aside from like Blumhouse and A24, nobody's doing it. Like, they're the ones, if you want a movie for like 10, 15 mil, you go to Blumhouse or A24, and even then we've got the genre market corner with a little bit extra. Any kind of thing else like that is funded through Netflix, essentially. It goes to streaming, which you're never going to hear about it. Or you're on a franchise movie for 100 mil.
Yeah, on Netflix or Amazon, it'll have one good week and then it'll disappear forever, just never to be heard from again. I mean, Spielberg kind of predicted something like this about 10 years ago, didn't he, that the blockbuster bubble would burst, and I think it has done now. It only takes a few of these massive projects to fail, and studios won't know what to do with themselves.
Marvel are completely rejigging everything and trying to bring back the original Avengers, and it's like, they've done with it about 4 years ago, and suddenly they're going, we need to bring everyone back in. It's a terrifying thing, and I think this is, well, I can only see it from an outside observer and a white straight male. I'm not in the best position to talk, but at least for me personally, this looks like what's happening, that you haven't got the groundworks to allow female directors to establish a decent body of work, so that if everything goes wrong for them once they get there, and it's going wrong for everyone, they have nothing to fall back on.
And I
hope this changes.
We keep mentioning franchises, and how many female-driven franchises even exist? Like, I just Googled, I came up with Tomb Raider, but I wouldn't call that female-driven. Isn't that like mostly men directing those projects?
Yeah, they haven't had a one director of the franchise, I don't believe. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's Angels, which there's like one movie I think made by a woman.
Yeah, made by Elizabeth Banks. Yeah, the most recent one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there are.
I mean, as of this year, we've got Barbie. Really.
There's no franchise of successive films that I could think of that are female driven.
No.
And this is creative female driven, not just like female star. The nearest you can possibly get is, I think, something like Kathleen Kennedy behind the Star Wars movies, or I think one of the family that have James Bond. Yeah, I was thinking in Indiana Jones. Yeah, because it seemed like the last one they were trying to set up for Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character to like have her own spin-off. If all else fails, that's the baton passing on. And I would pay to see that, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. But that's never going to happen because
would we say
completely flopped?
Would we say that either of those franchises are more Kathleen Kennedy than George Lucas, though?
No.
Yeah, so
because Kathleen Kennedy now has the reins, but they've been established by George Lucas. Either that, or give Ana de Armas her own series following No Time to Die. Let's be honest, she turned up for one scene, and everyone goes, "She's the best part of it." So,
yeah, all right. Well, I mean, we don't have any solutions other than hire more women to work behind the camera.
We can't do anything about it, so we talk about it.
Yeah. Our solution is that gif of Saoirse Ronan from Little Women. Just go, women.
Yeah,
that's our solution.
Look, I understand. Like they're probably reasons that women don't go into like full-time career directing aside from other stuff. Like it's definitely mostly sexism and just misogyny within the system. However, there are probably someone who's just like, I'm not interested in producing and all the stuff that comes with it. I understand it might not ever reach 50-50, but can we get to like 60-40? I'm pretty sure women are a larger portion of the Earth's population than men.
They live longer.
And yet.
They are, yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, where can people find you online?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine, where my review of Poor Things will be up tomorrow, I'm assured, so check that out. And I will also be reviewing Night Costa's The Marvels when I see it on Saturday, so probably look for that on Monday, I would imagine. But don't bother reading my things. Just go and read some stuff by some of the great writers, women writers that we've got on the Film Magazine. Because there's plenty of good stuff out there, and check out a lot of films directed by women as well. While you're at it, go watch some Lynn Ramsey or Agnes Varda or Celine Sciamma films. There's plenty to get at, and plenty of good stuff out there.
I mean, one of the things, the Film Magazine does a 100 films challenge every year. And for this year, I made several categories highlighting them. So if it was a 2023 release, I'd put it in one color. If it's an animation, I'd put it in one color and stuff like that. One of the things I will be doing for next year is putting a female directed category as well. Because at the very least, you look down and you go, oh my God, this is how bad it is. Like even this year, I'm looking down and going, how many animations have I watched? 6 kind of thing. And you go, oh God, like I'm really not pushing the boat out. So I will be adding in a female directed category as well, just to at the very least remind me to check myself, because otherwise I'll go for the easiest thing possible, which is just some really schlock horror movie directed by a white male, and I won't do it.
Go read Margaret's review of Bottoms, which is currently up there. Again, that's directed by Emma Seligman. So,
So you got that as well.
Again, when filmmakers have always been around, they just don't get the recognition.
Yep. There we go. Hopefully nowhere, but if you want to, I am K Judgmental around the world, across the webs. Various places. The one and only. I'm a very humble god. I haven't had anything up in the last week or so on TFM, but I am, which is kind of the reason why I chose Catherine Bigelow for this. At the end of the month, at the very least, I will be hopefully with TFM, the film magazine, putting up a ranked of all of Catherine Bigelow's films. So it just kind of went with that. And Jacob, have you done something to your sound?
Yes, it's back on now. Thank you, Greg.
There we go. Yeah, right at the end. If only we could cut him off earlier. But yeah, so I will be ranking all of Catherine Bigelow's films.
Turning
so if
Kieran
this has
off
intrigued
now.
you, give it to the end of the month, and hopefully you can see where I rank them all and check that out. And obviously, this will be updated probably in a year's time, maybe 2 years' time, when Aurora comes out as well.
Yep, and I don't know. Maybe I wrote something. Maybe I didn't. Who knows? But you can read that on the film magazine. Follow me at Jacob Film Guy, and I don't know, whatever else I say there. Go
merch.
Yep, you can get a sweet looking water flask from our Redbubble, which is down in the description. You can also phone case.
Yeah, phone cases, stickers, laptop covers, cushions, t-shirts, hoodies, the lot. I reckon we should submit our own stuff for it. What do you reckon? We should all do a design.
T-shirts with our faces on.
We could do all the faces on. I reckon we should get all the if our editor-in-chief is listening, I reckon all of the main writers should submit their own design for something.
Yes, I agree.
And have design merch wars.
You know what? He'll listen to it even if he's not here now.
I was going to say, that's it. Game over now.
Oh,
everyone in my family is going to get T-shirts with my face on for Christmas.
I guess Liam and James have left because we're down to just Greg. All right. And buy our stuff. You can also just give us money. We accept gifts of digital cash at the PayPal. And this is TFM. This is not us. This goes to the site, keeping independent publishing alive in the world.
I was going to say, it takes a certain amount to actually, pay to keep the site up and running every year. So all money initially does not go to us. It goes to them. Make our own Funko Pops. Now that's an idea.
Oh, God.
That would be amazing. Oh, what a plan.
Oh, no.
Genius. Yeah.
We'll have to call them like Finko Pops or Finko Poops or maybe not poops. We'll workshop that.
Pop, something like that. Yeah. We'll workshop it. We'll get back to you with some tentative designs.
James, we're cutting you out financially, though. Sorry.
Action figure of Sam? Wow. Yeah. And do it so we can put him in a variety of poses. So one's like Kill Bill pose,
One is holding up a sign saying, "Wrap it up."
Shut up, Kieran.
You're trying to end the stream for 10 minutes.
I was going to say, we're trying to end it, guys, in the comments. Why would you not jump in earlier? Come on, guys.
Okay,
anyway.
Buy our stuff, give us money. That's it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
See you next time.
Adios.
Bye.